Hey, I'm Andrea Lynn, and a couple weeks ago I spoke with John McClone. We speak mostly about Twitter and how Twitter could be shaped to potentially promote more dialogue. It was really interesting and made me think about how social media impacts our lives today. Hi, John.
Hello.
Thanks for chatting with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
So, first, I want to start off with how we became friends on Twitter / the Eric and Brett Weinstein Party Canoe site or group on Facebook. So that's how we met. But I don't think I really knew you until this situation happened. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you're talking about our feminism ban?
Yes, that.
Okay.
Your ban, because I just was a spectator.
Yeah, you were not banned. I was banned.
Yeah.
I was banned because there was a pinned post on our feminism asking about, somebody said they wanted to get into feminism. Where should they start? Mm-hmm. So I sent them a comment saying, well, you should probably check out Camille Paglia. Mm-hmm. She's got this. She's a great place to start. I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing. Mm-hmm. And then there was a link to her and Christina Hoff Sommers, I believe, talking. Mm-hmm. And that was it. There was I didn't inject my opinion, nothing.
Yeah, because you sent me the screenshot and I confirm.
Yeah. So it was literally just, here's a name, here's a link. Mm-hmm. And I got banned for that. And my guess is because our feminism doesn't like the brand of feminism that Camille Paglia sells. Mm-hmm.
And then I think you tried to object to it or something, and then you got permanently kicked off. Because initially you just got banned, and then it said if you don't agree.
Yeah. So I tried to appeal it. Like I messaged the moderators, and I just asked, why am I banned? And I don't remember the reason they gave at this point, but
it was problematic. It was a made up word. It was worse than problematic.
Oh, I want to look it up now, but
okay.
but then they muted me so that I couldn't respond to the moderators anymore either. They were just like doubling down.
Yes, and so that was something that I opened my eyes, because I think it was maybe in the summer, and I just joined Twitter and joined the that Facebook group, and so I didn't really know much about it other than just, hearing about it on podcasts. So that was one of the first times I'd seen it actually happen, where someone suggests something that's not even an opinion, just a resource, like in I guess, or a person, and then it's just completely rejected. So that really kind of opened my eyes to, this is something that is real. So like, what did you think of that though?
Oh, I mean, I wasn't too surprised. It was one of the first times. It was one of the first times I was banned for such a thing. Mm-hmm. But recently I was banned again. I don't know if you know about this. Maybe you saw me posting about it on Twitter or Facebook. But a very similar thing happened. I host a Jordan Peterson study.
I did see that.
In Raleigh. Yeah. And I literally posted on the Raleigh, which is the city I live near in North Carolina, subreddit, that we're having a conversation about whether or not we're in a culture war, or is that just crazy talk? Mm-hmm. And I said, if you're interested in this topic, feel free to join. All views are welcome. And then I posted a link. Mm-hmm. And I was banned. And the reason I was given was, no, none of this shit.
That's it.
And if you look through the comments, it's a bunch of people saying that I'm like a cult leader, like I'm trying to get people to join the cult of Jordan Peterson. Mm. But all I'm doing is offering a place to have discussions. You don't have to agree. Mm-hmm. And my take, especially with Reddit, is, they have an upvote and a downvote system. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to cry if you could downvote me to oblivion. I don't care. That's part of the system. If you don't like what I'm saying, downvote me. Mm-hmm. And if I wind up at the bottom of the barrel, that's fine. But if you actually look at that post, it had 40% upvote, which still keeps you at 0 points because, below the 50%. But it was 40% upvote, which I think is a great example of a truly controversial post. Mm-hmm. And they just banned me. Okay. So now I can't post to that subreddit either. So I wound up getting banned from the Raleigh subreddit for something very similar, which was I had mentioned Jordan Peterson and they don't like him.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about if it was something that was on the more radical side? If it was actually, and by the way, I don't at all in any way think that Jordan Peterson groups are white supremacist groups, but what if it was a self-professed white supremacist group that was wanting to meet and using that that particular subreddit? Like, what do you think of that?
What do I think of them, like, banning?
Yeah, should they be banned?
It's tough because, like, well, me personally, no, I would say no. I would have, if there's a certain set of rules for conduct on the subreddit and nobody's breaking it, even though they have views that I think are like insanely offensive, then I would say, guys, use the downvote button. It's that simple. But it kind of dips into the whole, one thing I like about Reddit is that they have communities, and then the communities are run by users, not by the company. So in a way, it's like, well, start your own community if you don't want to ban people who are self-proclaimed white supremacists, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to ban me for any reason at all. I just think it's very telling that they're banning me for mentioning people that they don't like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so with regards to healthy conversation, because I do think, and I believe would agree about having a dialogue and healthy conversations, combating these types of ideas, like shedding, sunlight on, rather than suppressing them and pushing them under the surface and making them the untouchable thing that you can't speak. So when it comes to that, like moving over to Twitter, what do you think about how Twitter is set up for those types of conversations? Mind you, I know it's limited because it is 240 characters or less and anyone can jump in. So, but what's your take on that? Because I know you have some ideas about that.
Yeah, no, this is something I've been really focused on lately. It's I do not think Twitter is a good place for actual conversation. I think if you're looking for a place to just yell at each other, or obviously there's a lot of good things happening on Twitter too, but if you're just looking for a place to feel affirmed in your views because a million people are all just saying the same thing, then you go to Twitter. But if you're looking to actually get to the bottom of something and articulate some new thoughts that you have, ask questions and get answers from a person, I don't think Twitter facilitates that at all. And it's in part because of the structure of it. It's just comments after comments, and it quickly branches out. Like you could post one tweet and literally a million people could have a first level comment to that tweet.
Right.
And then underneath each of those could be another million different people. So they do a good job of making it like, if you find yourself in like one part of the tree, you could easily go back to the top. Like you could trace it, but in tracing it, you'll probably hit like 6 different people trying to have 20 different conversations.
Okay.
So
You don't love that? Okay. Well, because I suppose it depends on how many followers you have and who is posting. And because I've seen so almost, where it shows one comment, but then back and forth, almost like 20 comments, which is kind of what you're talking about. And I find that I have been able to make it work for me, where I follow people I'm left of center, so politically and I guess culturally. So I find that I've been able to follow people around me, around that sort of where my position is, so I can get a little bit of a diverse opinion if I tweet out a question. I don't tweet out questions a lot because I'm curious about people's opinions. So I find that I've been able to do that. Like what you said, you don't think that Twitter can do. I find that I've been able to do that, but that is because I've cultivated that. And it doesn't, you've got to try to be very specific about continuing to follow people that might have a grating opinion and think, no, I should keep that and address that with with that person, So I do think that it's possible, but it's just not first nature, I guess.
Yeah, I think like, if I tweet at Brett Weinstein or Eric Weinstein, right? Is it Weinstein or Weinstein? I always confuse it.
Weinstein, because it's
It's
like Einstein. And they don't like to say that but I do.
Yeah, but that's
Anyway.
great. Well, because I know Weinstein is the other one, right?
Yes. Yeah. The other, yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. But like if I message one of them and I'm lucky that they respond, chances are good that even though it started out between me and them and then they respond right now, that's just a two-person dialogue. Chances are good somebody else is going to comment.
Yeah.
And now I don't need to comment on that. I could ignore it and Eric could ignore it. But I sense that even in the response that's being crafted to me or from me, there's this anticipation that anybody could join. And I wonder about the effect that has on it. So like right now, you and I are talking and I might not word something perfectly. You might not word something perfectly, but we'll sort that out. Like it'll stay in this dialogue and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
And even if we had a live audience right now, they couldn't just be like, but Andrea, I think you're not understanding John, or but John, if you only said it this way, there's no way that somebody can just jump into this conversation and
well, unless you're at a certain university campus, but yes.
Yeah. So,
most of the time, yeah.
Right. But the expectation of like the stage and audience is that the stage, what's on the stage is between the people on the stage and the audience is bearing witness.
Okay.
So I agree. And I've had really good like back and forths on Facebook and Twitter where it's like, I go, you go, I go, you go, whatever. But even in that, I've had really strange heated arguments that even though it was just the two of us, when we dipped into a private message, all of a sudden we were like nicer to each other.
Wait, really?
Yeah. And I think there's two reasons for that. One, it's private. So, you can kind of let your guard down because nobody's listening. You can just be more a friend to the person you're talking to. So obviously what I'm going to suggest doesn't create the privacy aspect, but two, every message that's crafted really does feel like you're the only person who's going to hear it.
Okay.
And when you respond, or not the only person who's going to hear it, let me rephrase that. Every message that's crafted feels like you're the only person who's going to respond to it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not saying something as though anybody can jump in at any time. Like I don't have to worry about that.
And it might be almost like subliminal. It might just be a strange or a subconscious awareness, maybe?
Yeah. I think it's subtle.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. So what then do? We do the best we can with Twitter. So like what's the next steps for figuring something out that's better?
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm trying to prototype is I want to create a comment system that is a locked-in dialogue. So to start out, it would be just imagine a Twitter or Facebook, something like that, where you could post a status. And then, you post a status saying, I don't know, what do you post about?
I don't know, like
let's run.
Talk about being like, let's be kind, people. Let's guard our words. That's usually what I post about.
Okay, so you make a status saying, and then I say, hey Andrea, what inspired this thought?
Oh, okay.
And now when I say that, I have the option to invite you to a dialogue. So if you choose to respond, it locks us into a thread where it's just you and me talking. Other people can see, but nobody can like jump in, right? So then you and I might actually get to the bottom of that. You might say, well, with the New Zealand shooting going on, I see a lot of people arguing and I think this is exactly what he wanted. I'm not trying to put like ideas in it's just but I've seen people saying those kinds of things and I've heard people countering it. But I think if you and I could just have that dialogue, we might actually get a lot further than if we just try to have the dialogue with the world on Twitter.
So would that just be for the two of you, and who cares if people see it? If they want to see it, they can? Is it for those two people, or is it for others to see? I don't know. It feels like people might not be as interested if they're like, well, this isn't for me, so see you later if I'm not part of the dialogue. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, because obviously it's not going to be for everybody, but I mean, Peterson's going to be talking to, I can never say his name, Zizek, he's got a big event coming up where he's talking to a very famous leftist thinker, right?
Oh, okay. Oh,
And
yeah, I don't remember his name. Okay.
it sold out immediately.
Okay.
So people like pretty much immediately, like it sold out really fast. And now they're selling like live stream tickets, you know, like people are tuning in to dialogues that they can't join in on, right?
Okay.
They want to see the dialogues. They want to read the dialogues. I mean, think of like any good magazine where it's like even back in, you know, Playboy magazine.
Oh yeah, I totally love it.
Yeah, well, but there's a page where they do an interview with somebody, and you're literally just reading the interviewer, the interviewee, the interviewer, the interview. Right now, this video is going to go up on YouTube, and people are going to tune in. Now, they can still have a conversation about it with each other, and I wouldn't want to take that away. So I think it would be kind of cool if here's our dialogue thread, right? Let me be a little visual, right? Here's our dialogue thread. If off to the side, you can click out, and, you know, people can talk about the dialogue. That could be free form, like YouTube's comments or whatever. But our dialogue is the content we're producing, and it's not just content. Although, you know, if somebody wants to approach it that way, that's fine. I really do think it's kind of I think it's productive. I think we'll go back and forth, and a few things are going to happen. We're either going to get nowhere, which I doubt. We're going to get a little bit to the bottom of it, which is most likely, or we're going to hate each other a little more. But even in that, you know, you still learn something.
Right. Oh, so I guess people who have a good dialogue or interesting dialogue, or I guess even heated, that would be almost rewarded, because people would be like, oh, this is a good one, as opposed to really flat and boring. Sorry, you're not going to do very well on this site. So
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, it now doubles as two things. One, it's an avenue to actually share your ideas and try to fine tune them, but also it's a way to create content. So you can imagine if Peterson and Eric Weinstein were using this platform, you know, they'll go back and forth a little bit on Twitter, right? But imagine they're on this one and they have this little dialogue, and then it's over. Maybe it's only 10 back and forths, right? Because online, but I have an idea on how to formally close the dialogue. You don't have to. You could just leave it alone, and then it's a dialogue that could be picked up later, or maybe it closes if it's like inactive for a week or something.
Right, like a poll closes almost. Yeah.
Exactly. But I have this idea to formally close a dialogue because, and it's inspired by some of my own pet peeves. So it goes like this.
Okay, please.
Generally speaking, if you and I are talking and you really want to end the conversation, you're going to go, all right, I've had enough.
Sounds good. Bye.
It's over. Bye, right? But chances are good, and maybe I'm projecting, like a lot of people want to take the last word and end the conversation, right? So they'll say, I think you're ridiculous. This is the negative form. I think you're ridiculous. You know nothing about what you're talking about. I'm done with this conversation. Mute, block, hang up, whatever. I think it would be cool to, since it is a dialogue and since you're not contending with the world, you're just contending with one other individual on this planet. You can send your message and you check a little flag and you say, hey, it was fun talking, or hey, your views are ridiculous, whatever. And you say, I'm requesting to end the dialogue by like checking this little box. Now I have an option. I can respond once more. So now you want to end the dialogue, so it kind of gives me the last word. I could respond once more and agree to end the dialogue.
Okay.
Or I can respond and not agree, because I can negotiate. And, you know, I brought this up with a friend, and he goes, he saw some downsides of it. And I agree with them. But I said to him, but in real life, people can negotiate if the conversation's actually over. And he goes, ooh, I like that, the in real life part. So the idea is to simulate a real conversation as much as possible. You're not going to be able to do it perfectly because it's the internet. But the idea that I can say, hey, look, I want to end this conversation, and then you can agree or negotiate, I think is important. But once I say I want to end a conversation, whether you agree or not, I can leave at this point anytime I want. And you might see this. You might see, all right, Andrea, I think we're arguing. We're kind of going in circles. It was a good chat, but I'm exhausted. I want to end this conversation. And then you go, hold on, no, wait. I want to try one more time to explain myself. And then the very next line might be, JP has left the conversation.
Okay.
But if anybody leaves, or if they both agree to end it, that dialogue is finished and it's packaged and it's a shareable thing on the internet forever.
Right. Okay. So people can kind of look and see, maybe even work through some questions of their own. If they see it, rather than having to do it themselves, you can read and come to that does help me understand whatever subject better. Because I am like that, where I like to see two different sides. And I don't have to be the one doing it. Like, so hence watching debates. Like I do enjoy that as well. So this wouldn't have quite as wide of an audience as say Twitter does, because this would be people who are seeking to understand.
So it doesn't need, something I'd like to do is lobby Twitter and Facebook, because it's not like it has to be a whole new platform. I mean, I'm working on it because I want to show that this can work. If Twitter just added it as an option, like next to the comment bubble, there's a little like two-face bubble. I think that would be great.
Oh, huh. Why not? That's interesting. Yeah, what do you... Okay, sorry. I'm trying to go ahead. What do you think about Twitter and, all the different interviews that we've been seeing lately with that? Like, what do you think about that? They seem to be genuinely wanting to hear the public and talk about what their downfall is a bit. Or is it all a publicity stunt? Like, what do you think?
I don't think it's a publicity stunt, but I think what's going on is validating what I'm saying.
Okay. So do you think this could be something that is a solution? Because they wanted to take away, what did they actually want to take away?
They wanted to, on Twitter, they want to take away likes.
They did. They wanted to also, maybe so you can't see certain comments.
Yeah,
remember? And you had to click on it.
So it was driving me nuts watching Jack on Joe Rogan both times, because he's sitting there and he's complimenting Rogan. He's like, you see, what you have here is this really great platform where we can just sit down and talk and you reach a broad audience. And it's like, Twitter, it's a little more chaotic. Like I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying these kinds of things. So in essence, he was kind of praising the dialogue and admitting that there's faultiness with the, splurge fest that is Twitter, which is just like, a text message to the world, as I heard him call it. And I'm sitting there, I stood up in my chair. I'm like, yes, Jack, you're right. That's why you need to facilitate dialogue on your platform. But he went the complete opposite route. He's like, well, we want to give people the power to better moderate their threads.
Like Reddit almost? Is that kind of where do you think he's drawing from that?
I don't know if it's like Reddit, but the way I understand it is that he explained it like this. You make a post, and then a bunch of people are commenting, and then you go, you know what? I don't think this comment is really contributing to what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to I'm going to delete you. But deleting doesn't delete it. It just kind of moves it into
hides it.
A secondary room. And it tells everybody, it says, Andrea has moved this comment out. And then if they click it, they can go to it, but it's it's going to go away from that comment thread. And it's I get what he's saying. He wants to get, because he's thinking of your post as yours and you should be able to control the conversation. But see, my idea is the opposite direction. I don't want to control the conversation. I want to have a conversation with another person. So I'm not saying what he's saying wouldn't work. And maybe that will work for we need better words for this. There's dialogue and then there's
threads? Twitter threads?
Yeah, well, in have you read Lord of the Flies?
In high school, yes.
Remember how they have the conch and whoever has the conch can talk?
Yeah. Piggy's got the conch. Yes, yeah. I remember.
And then
Poor
the conch
Piggy
breaks.
Yep.
And that's when all chaos happens. I think
that's so symbolic. Oh. I love revisiting old themes from high school where you're oh, I see what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it
Interesting.
meant because, well, spoiler alert, but Piggy and the conch died at the same
I know.
time, right?
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone who was like on the edge of their seat. I need to read Lord of the Flies, and you
They should. They
ruined.
should go reread it with like a new adult lens.
Yeah, I should do that. Yeah.
But I think of like the dialogue approach as the conch
Okay.
and the Twitter approach as like, fuck the conch, throw it away.
Yeah.
We're just gonna all yell at each other.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. Piggy's dead. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And I feel like, so to give Jack credit, I think the idea that he's doing is he is kind of creating like something in between where he's like, hey, look, I'm the leader of my post. And if you say
Right.
something I don't want, I
Right.
get to move it out.
Mm-hmm.
Where what I'm saying is, how about this is a conversation where only invited people are talking and we all have each other's back,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because right now I'm thinking of it in terms of a one-on-one conversation because I think that's the best way to have conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see a reason you can't invite a third person to that conversation.
Like a group,
Or
yes.
a person, but it's like, but it's still only the people who were invited and not the world, you know?
Okay, see, the only thing is that, and maybe this is, I'm just thinking about it as you're saying it.
Yeah, yeah.
So only say certain people. I mean, it depends on who you consider your version of, like, you know, the celebrity. It could be the intellectual kind of circles that I run in academic circles in Twitter, but it could be just literal celebrities. They get to invite their, almost like a visual podcast kind of thing. They get to have theirs that everyone's tuning into and looking at. But what about like people like you and me? Is that even a problem? Or I mean, it might be difficult to even garner an audience. I don't know if that even matters though, but like being able to find someone with a dialogue if you're not important, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. That's why I like the fact that it's not just about growing a base.
Mm-hmm.
Like it actually is about facilitating good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you and me, if we have a dialogue on this platform or on Twitter, if they build this, and nobody sees it and who cares? We had a good dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of having the dialogue, we weren't anticipating some person coming in and calling, you know, one of us a Nazi or whatever it is.
Right.
So, and no big deal. But, you know, let's say you do make a top level comment on one of your celebrity or e-celebrity, you know, I think you specifically, I see you having dialogues with people who are, I would say, pretty popular, at least in like the YouTube series.
They're my celebrities.
Yeah, they're yours.
Yeah.
So, but they have a much bigger base than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but they're already having conversations with you on Twitter. So now imagine if you got into a dialogue with one of them. Now you benefit from that because people who want to see them are now tuning into yours and their conversation.
Right. Yeah, I suppose if I think of it in terms of Twitter and just adding this as an option, I can visualize it a little better because it doesn't take it all away. It doesn't make everyone Z-list or, you know, Y-list and then all the A-list, B-list, you know. I guess it doesn't necessarily downgrade everyone if it's just an option, say, on Twitter, because you're already there, you know. So I can understand it a bit better in that sense. But, okay, so do you think this would change how... Because Twitter has real-world implications. And that's one of the things I saw yesterday with regards to, I don't know when I'll get this out, but at the time we're filming it's day after the New Zealand massacre in the mosque. And so a lot of people were saying, like one of my friends, Matt, said, I don't know how to, we're trying to process this, but one thing you can actually do is convince someone in the real world that Twitter and platforms and the internet have real world implications. Like what happens here actually can affect the real world. So I thought that was an interesting idea. But that leads me to this. If we could change how we do dialogue on Twitter, what do you think that would do to change how maybe we see each other on the internet and then in the world? Just a small question. Like,
oh, no. I thought about it, and I think it could have tremendous effect because I was thinking about this today. Historically, the way we communicated, we wrote, like way back, we wrote letters and we had couriers take it, right? So you had to really think about what you wrote, you know? The way we stored information is we had books and we had libraries, right? And and everything was sorted, and you could like get a little, what do they call that? The Dewey, is it the Dewey?
The Dewey Decimal System? Is that what you're talking about? The library?
Yeah, in the library where you have like the little thing that
card?
flips around and you try to find the author.
Yeah, no, that's, what is that? Is it like a Rolodex? I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. So, but
Okay.
you had to like, and everything was really sorted and organized, right? So I felt almost by because technology was, well, I don't want to say primitive, because when I think primitive, I think like etching onto stones, but
yeah.
but it wasn't where it is today.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of just, by its nature, you had to stay a little ordered
Mm-hmm.
in order to keep the information around. That's not the case anymore. Now it's like just like it's chaos, but somehow we still have Wikipedia. It's chaos, yet somehow we're still like starting revolutions that started on like Twitter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, I wonder what would happen if there was a part of Twitter or the internet that allowed for ordered dialogue, which I don't think there is right now. Well, there is, and it's like YouTube, right? On YouTube, you and me can have this conversation and we can post it, or Peterson, somebody can have a conversation, they can post it. But in text form, I don't think there's anything out there that allows you and me to have a dialogue and then post it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the best you could do right now, if you really wanted to, was you and I could have like a private message over like Twitter DMs.
Yeah.
And share it, screenshot it and share it if we want.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've never thought of that, but I guess I've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah, people do it, but I don't think it's that common. So I think of it like this: if social media right now is all just chaos, and social media is kind of shaping the way we think about the world and each other, then a little bit of order on social media wouldn't hurt.
Right.
And I think that's what Jack's trying to do. He's like, oh, I'm trying to give people tools to control. Like, that's what he's doing. He's trying to order the chaos on Twitter. And he's taking one avenue. The avenue I'm wanting to take is kind of more from the ground up. And I'm like, hold on a second. Why not just give them a tool that is innately ordered, which is, it starts between two people and maybe you can invite a few more people in and you can have a conversation.
Okay. Yeah. And that could then, so I guess, bleed out into the way that people think, because it does actually, when I got on Twitter in June, I think I already said that, but it took me a while to even be able to start thinking how to tweet. But then I started thinking in tweets, and I had to write them down in the middle of the night because I'm like, oh, it's a good one, So it is sort of like I feel like our brains almost do reshape, even though you did say this is a new thing technology-wise. It is something that we aren't used to through the ages, but we do kind of adapt to that in a way that, I mean, it could be unhealthy, but so if we maybe have a bit more of a dialogue system set up, that could maybe change how people are in, say, the universities, I suppose, is what I'm thinking of, students being on. Maybe they could then have a more ordered way of approaching someone who disagrees with them, if that was something that they were seeing more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it would help with that. Because I think you're right that if every day we go on Twitter, and it's confusing because when you go on Twitter, sometimes you see a link to an article. Now, that article wasn't just like somebody didn't go, oh, I have this thought, type up the article, no proofread, send, right? That's something that was like well thought out, went through some editing process, was posted. But then the very next tweet you read is like Donald Trump yelling at somebody about something, right? And maybe he proofread it a little bit for like a typo or something, but maybe not. But there's this juxtaposition between that tweet and the tweet above it, which was well thought out. And I think people are still just kind of pretending in their brain that like all of these tweets are like well thought out and well articulated, where if you see two people on a stage talking, you don't assume that. Unless they're reading from a script, you don't assume that what came out of that person's mouth was exactly what they wanted to say. I'm hoping that by introducing some sort of dialogue system, even in text form, it'll make people go, okay, this is a dialogue between two people. Maybe it's not exactly what they meant to say, but they'll figure it out, right? And if that works, then yes, maybe people, even in real life, will grant each other that leniency. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of it might be overshooting, but it does have, I mean, it does have real world implications though, you know. Well, literally with that situation yesterday, like he was citing all these things about social media and social media personalities. So
who was citing?
Well, we don't know his name, which is good. The shooter, who shot up the mosque.
Oh, we know his name, but yeah.
We do? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't look for it, and okay. I found that I didn't actually see it listed in any of my news feed. Yeah. So, because these things affect, like what happens on the internet does affect the world, you know? And so it does seem like if we could clean up how we allow ourselves for snap judgments, I guess, on Twitter. And I know not everyone's on Twitter, but I don't know if it feels like it sometimes. Like,
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. When you message, see, Snapchat is interesting.
I'm not on that one. I don't know that one. It's the
But you kind of know how it works?
I did. I went on it for like a few months because one of my little cousins was like, this is all I use. Facebook's for old people. And I wasn't on Twitter at the time, and he doesn't even have Twitter. So, but I was like, okay, I'll go on it. And then he would just barely go on it. And I would only write things back. I wasn't going to be like, and send it, you know? Well, so I've been on it. I don't really love it. But
it's amazing that Snapchat did so well. I mean, I get it. And we at a startup I worked at years ago, we were kind of trying to study Snapchat. Like, why does Snapchat work? And the best we can come up with was like, Snapchat, the average person on Snapchat has about 7 friends, something like that, like a really low number. Some people literally have one friend, like it's just like a boyfriend and a girlfriend. They just Snapchat each other. That's it. And what it did was it gave you a way to very quickly share a moment in your day with another person that you knew. It was like a friend. And people like that. People like the fact that they could go, you know, they could be at a party and just like take like a quick picture. They don't have to care if it looks goofy because it's only going to their friends, and their friends don't mind if they're goofy. But contrast that to Twitter. If you take a selfie and you're about to post it on Twitter, that goes to the world. So what do? You're checking it. You're doing right.
But then that's Instagram, because that's where you would post for that kind of a thing.
Especially Instagram, yeah. But I guess kind of what I'm getting at is there's something about Snapchat that allowed people to be authentic, right?
Because it didn't stay long. I mean, I know you could do a screenshot, but that sort of immediacy, the temporary feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the what's the word they use? Ephemeral. Because it goes away. So there's there's that side of it. Okay, so it goes away. It's only to people you already know. Well, let me say that. So it goes away. It's between people that you already know, and it only goes to people that you already know. Where Twitter, it doesn't go away ever. It's between everybody in the whole world ever, and everybody in the whole world ever can see it. So all I'm
add to it, and
what I'm proposing only takes away the third one, which is, if you and I have a dialogue in this dialogue text system, it's only between you and me, right? Which is very different than Twitter, but it still goes out to everybody in the world.
Yes,
so it's just literally just one step away.
Right. Okay. And
big one.
Yeah, it is. It is an interesting thing because I just really, I see the reasons why Twitter's not great, but like, I just love it so much that I have I know, but I mean, I guess with the Covington weekend, you know, that was what really made me be like, oh, I mean, I guess Kavanaugh as well before, but with the Covington being like nobody's, it was nobody's. And then I saw this is what it can do. I mean, with the Covington, Kavanaugh, that was news. And so it made sense that it was being talked about all the time. But with these kids, it was like, this should have been a weird thing that happened. And then they went in the bus and went home. So I can see why like Twitter made that. that was created, I think, through really because of the camera angles and this and that and the other. So I do see it, but I guess there's a sort of a risk involved in Twitter that I might like, that it's like, I'm throwing it out. Does it stick? And then it's like, oh, it did.
Yeah.
So it feels kind of risky.
I don't want to get rid of that. Like, I think that should exist. I'm disappointed that the other thing doesn't. And it's
so
like,
not everyone has to do it. Right. Yeah. You don't have to have it.
And there are obviously, like you, me, the people we follow. And like you said, you're able to get some of this because the people you follow like dialogue. And I think this idea, one, would give those people a place to have dialogue, because there are people looking for it and they just can't really have it on that in text form on social media. At least it's very hard to, and it's fought against, because, you know, Peterson can't even express a half-baked thought about Kavanaugh, right? Because he said he thought Kavanaugh should step down. Yeah. And everybody went after him. And, you know, I was kind of just surprised too. But it's like,
I got him. He was going for the archetypal, I will take the sacrifice for the world, and he's whatever. But he blog posted about it later to explain that, and it didn't get explained in the beginning, and they turned anyway.
Yeah. But I always wonder if there had been a series of dialogues, like if you could have reached out to Peterson and said something really clever, and he was like, well, this is interesting, let me respond to her, and then it was stuck between you two, maybe that could have helped you get to the bottom of it. So I don't know. I fantasize a lot about the idea. And I just think that people who want that kind of dialogue, it would be good for them to have a way to do it. And then I'm willing to bet that there's some number of people who maybe don't want it or don't know they want it right now, but given the tool, and I'm not trying to do the whole like build it and they will come mantra, but they will go to it, right? I mean, that's obviously true. Like Twitter, like nobody knew they wanted Twitter, and then Twitter came and like everybody's on it now. The president's on it. It's wild.
Yeah, I actually just remember thinking, well, Facebook, all of the things that have, like, Facebook has status updates. You can post pictures on Facebook. That's what Instagram is. That's what Twitter is. And I remember thinking back, you know, years ago when these things came out, well, why would I need more than what I just have on Facebook, you know? So I was fine with just sticking with that. And I also know that I get addicted to things. So I was like, only one social media platform. And, I was right, because I'm absolutely addicted to Twitter. But, you know, I have a focus, though. Like, there's a reason to, I don't know, there's a reason. I tell myself this. It started off because I wanted to, you know, promote my channel, which didn't exist. I started first going on Twitter and Instagram. I'm like,
like, check out my channel, the other 95.
That doesn't exist yet. Yeah, later. It's to come. Yeah, YouTube coming soon channel.
Good idea.
But so I started off that way because I just was like, I don't know how to do the video part. So, and I'm figuring that part out, but I'll just get started on the social media stuff to start building. But then it sort of became, in my sort of mantra of, I think I was seeking intelligent discourse and fresh perspectives. That's in my bio. And I just wanted to prove you don't have to stoop to name calling and to being rude, and that you can disagree and it's possible. And I was rather stubborn, and I'm still pretty stubborn. I'm very stubborn about it. I'm like, I will not call people names. I hate that. I won't even in my fights with my husband. You know, because I'm like, you won't change me. Like, that's how it feels. And I feel like that on Twitter. So I wanted to say, and I kind of want to be that force, you know, like, it's so cheesy, but like the change you want to see in the world, you know, like I didn't know that starting it, but as I was on it, and I was like, I kind of approached people in a way I wish I could approach people in real life, because I'm much more impulsive in real life. And sorry, I don't like saying Twitter isn't real anymore, because it is. Like, I say in person.
I've heard it described, instead of saying in real life, you could just say offline.
Offline. Oh, yes. Okay, that's good.
Or away from keyboard.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'll remember offline. So online, I'm able to be like the opposite of most people on Twitter. I'm able to be a little bit more measured and focused and stop and reread what I'm writing, even though I still get typos in there. But just to say, like, I know there's zero. It's also, I have this idea that I know there's 0 point in being aggressive and, well, that's stupid. Like, oh, wow, you're really helping. Good job. Like, that doesn't actually do a thing.
Yeah.
And why am I doing it? It doesn't even, I even saw someone saying that they lost sleep on International Sleep Day. There goes my sleep. And that was yesterday. And I was, yeah, sorry you lost your sleep. 40 people lost their lives. So that's cool. You know, but again, I didn't write that.
We would only even say something like that because of something like Twitter.
Right.
The world is so connected now that tragedies that happen literally on the other side of the world in another hemisphere, we pretend like
they should know
that it affects us.
Right.
And it does in a way because of this interconnected globe, but in reality, that's like of all the things happening in the world, that should affect you the least because it's the furthest from you. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, but when you know, well, there are all those school shootings. I know it's not the other side of the world, but like being in Canada, whenever I would hear about the States school shootings, it always, you know, made me sad and quite affected me. When you hear about those kind of things, it feels heavy. But I did read someone mention that in Brazil, the day before or 2 days before, there was a mass shooting as well.
Yep.
And we just didn't hear about it. And so there wasn't outreach. And I did kind of feel, wow, that seems super hypocritical. I don't know why. Because it's not a developed nation, because it's not an English speaking nation.
I don't know. Somebody said to me today on Twitter, they said, because I compared it to, there was a shooting in the Philippines 2 months ago.
Okay.
I think 20 people died. I don't know.
Oh.
I think it was a bombing actually. But anyway, it was like ISIS militants blew up a church or something, a Christian church. And it's like, how come you don't hear it in that direction? And they said, well, that's a third world country, so it doesn't feel like the same. Like if you live in the West, something happening to the West feels like it's hurting you, where something happens in a third world country, it doesn't. And I was like, okay, there's some validity to the point, but
you can identify easier. I get that. I get it, but I don't think I like that. I don't like that that's true.
Right. And so here's another, well, we completely went off topic.
No, that's fine. That's what I like. I'm fine with this.
Yeah. I do think that there's a difference between the kind of people who think about like the collective first and they work their way in, and they're like, oh, we need to make sure that everybody has water. Like and if you live a few hundred years ago, everybody is really like your tribe. Where if you live in 2019, everybody is the world, because you are milliseconds from sending a message to anybody in the entire world. So if you are like the nurturing type and you're like, oh, I want to make sure everybody has water, sustenance and water and all this stuff, then you are constantly trying to convince people to like share, to redistribute, to, you know, which to me is a slippery slope to like stealing from them, right? You quickly become Robin Hood.
Right.
And then you have people who are like, well, wait a minute, if you just do your best to make you as best as you can be, then you can maybe help those around you, and then they can do the same. We can have the same effect, but from the inside out. And that's really hard to do on the internet.
Yes. Okay.
Obviously, Peterson's message.
Right. You will clean up. Get your own house in order before you criticize the world, because you can go and make a concerted effort to, you know, be the person who either is the boots on the ground who goes and builds these sort of water systems where it's sort of, you know, filters through, and you could. I know people who have done that. Or become an engineer who engineers the system that actually does, like, you can make a difference in the world if you want. Right, right. So I that's not the kid who did that Mid-Atlantic trash, not Mid-Atlantic, the Mid-Pacific, that Pacific trash pile in the ocean, the guy who made that collector. It collects all the... You haven't heard of that?
I haven't heard about it, but it collects garbage out of the water?
Yes. It's just a really long... Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan, actually. He's a Dutch kid. He's like 18 or 19 or something. Maybe he's a little older now. But yeah, so it's this... this really long, I don't know, kind of rake thing, and it just collects the garbage, and they're trying to make a business out of it where they make things recycled, like, you know, sunglasses and like things like that, and they
out
sell
of the garbage. That's cool.
and they sell that, and then, you know, the proceeds go to making it better and towards the organization. And so, I mean, you can do global things too. It's just, I think it feels good to tweet about, we need to help the orphans and we need to whatever. It just doesn't really do anything for those orphans. It's like, well, then go help the orphans, literally. Like, I know people who go to Haiti and, you know, try to like volunteer like for a year and work with the orphans as a volunteer for a year and things like that.
I think if people actually put their money where their mouth is, or their feet, I don't know.
Yeah, their feet in the boots to go. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Put their feet in the boots to go. They wouldn't need to lobby for government to force everybody to pay for it.
Right.
You know, like this affordable healthcare stuff. It's like, if you really think this program will work, and about half the country does, why don't they just all agree to voluntarily do it for the next 10 years? Be like, okay, I'm going to sign something that says money is going to come out of my paycheck, pre-taxed, and it's going to pay for democratic healthcare, let's call it. And all these Democrats could be on it if they want, right?
Oh, well, why don't they just do that?
And it's like, why don't you do it? Why is it so important that everybody must do it, even though they don't agree with it? They think that they have better ideas and they want to do something in their own way.
Oh, do you mean so that you think that it should be elective?
I think if people really believed in these ideas, they would make it happen without having to force everybody to do it.
Okay. See, because of living in Canada, I mean, we already have, I'm in Alberta, so we have Alberta healthcare, and each province has their own healthcare. And I do know some people who appreciate having, I don't know, like the system where you could have a private side of it as well as the public. And they tried to vote that in Alberta years ago, and it was no, you know, so some of it, but we've had it forever. And I think the fact that we just started as a country with it makes it so that we don't even think about it. I mean, sorry, I know people who think about it and don't like it. And I have a friend actually who is in doing a nurses exchange type, not exchange, but a sort of short-term stint as a nurse in Texas and in Houston. And so I am going to interview her when she gets back, because I'm really curious to hear about the difference between our healthcare versus the healthcare there, because I think the it's not 100% privatized, is it? Because of the insurance companies, and that seems to quite get in the way of just paying for it. Straight that you have your insurance company, whatever. So I don't know the details of it, but like I know for me, okay, so my son has diabetes, and so I don't have to worry about insurance of any kind because we have Alberta Health. And so every 3 months we have to go to the Children's Hospital. I just have to pay for parking. We see a dietitian. Sometimes we see the nurse. Sometimes we see the endocrinologist. So I don't have to worry about that as an expense. I do have to pay for like his supplies, but we have, like, my husband's in university right now, so we have like the university benefits to cover that in like 80 or 90% or something. So
yeah, I think a big difference with Canada and America is like you already have it, and whether people agree with it or not, it's very hard to take things away from people who already have a thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if it's the right thing to do, right? So like welfare, good luck getting rid of that. I think the only way to get rid of that in America is to replace it with something like UBI or whatever. So, but if a place doesn't have welfare and they were doing fine, to start implementing it, people are going to get angry about that because it's going to, and you know who's not going to get angry is the people who need it or want it. And everyone else is going to be like, well, why are you taking from me? Right.
Right.
So I do think with the healthcare thing, there are plenty of people where the system works for them. And then of course there are plenty of people where it doesn't. And there's all kinds of side effects in both ways. I get it, but it's going to be very hard to tell America that, oh, by the way, now we're going to take an extra 10% of your money away because you got to subsidize people's healthcare,
Right.
no matter what choices they make. You know, like right now, there are people getting gender transition surgery for their teenagers.
Right.
And I don't agree with that morally.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think I don't agree with it economically. I think down the line, a big portion of these people are going to regret it, or they're going to
Mm-hmm.
have other health problems, you know, because to
Mm-hmm.
maintain, especially a male to female transition, is very
Right.
costly.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if it was in Canada, you guys are paying for that anyway, because it's in
Yeah.
the health. Even here, though, we're paying for it because the government can mandates that insurance companies must cover it. And if insurance companies must cover it, then my premium goes up.
Right.
Even though it's for a thing that I fundamentally do not want to cover. Like I think it's just unnecessary and actually wrong.
Yeah. It's that. Yeah, that's a hard one. Same with see in Canada, because our population is so much smaller. Like we have 1 Canadian for every 10 Americans.
Yeah.
So it's just less people to be dealing with.
And you're more homogenous.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but I know people will say like, oh, but socialism, like they'll go far as to say like a lot of socialist ideas work really well in the Scandinavian countries. And a common counter to that is like, yeah, have you been to a Scandinavian country? They're all like the same people. So
I see what
like
you mean.
If you didn't have the program, they would probably just do it anyway.
Oh, okay.
Where you go to America and it's like, there's so many different cultures, so many different kinds of people, different habits, different diets, different everything, that it's really hard to see how those people would naturally want to all help each other when they all do things that are contradicting to each other's cultures.
Right. It depends on which province you go to, because I mean, even in my own city, we have sort of different populations settle in different areas of the city, like immigrants wise. You know, you go to who you know, right? So
people tend to self-segregate, yeah.
Right, yes. And so I know in British Columbia, which is beside us, like the mountains thing, Vancouver is in British Columbia, you know, so we have quite a few people, either immigrants from Asia or of Asian descent. And I mean, Lindsay Shepherd actually posted about this in certain higher end shops in, you know, the malls. They have you have to speak English and Mandarin and Cantonese or something like that for being hired. And she didn't agree with it because she was thinking, but I'm in Canada. Why do I have to speak either of those languages? You know, so that's an example of, you know, it's not as homogenous in that particular area, in the lower mainland area. In Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, I suppose overall it's pretty white, you know, especially Saskatchewan is mostly farmers, and Manitoba, I think, as well. And Ontario and Quebec, they're quite, I'd say they're in the, you know, in the part closest down to in the Great Lakes areas. That's where a lot of people go. Toronto and Montreal, that's where a lot of new immigrants go. And then if you go to the Maritimes, it is, here's a little lesson for you. I'm just realizing what I'm doing.
Trying to take mental.
Yeah. So my husband's actually from Nova Scotia. So in the mainland, like in, it's connected to the actual mainland in where Halifax, where the capital is. That one, yeah, it's pretty white, but you can have different people and it's not weird. But he's from the island that's part of Nova Scotia called Cape Breton Island, and it's you know, coal miner kind of country, and he said that there's, you know, 2 African Canadian. There were like 2 African Canadian families who lived in the area, and, you know,
can we just say black? I mean,
I guess so, offensive. Black, yeah. But I just they were just I think that they left because they just weren't treated well, because it was just pretty racist out in the kind of countryside, you know. So it depends on the area. 2
white guys, not to derail it, but 2 white guys living in a mostly black like in an otherwise all black neighborhood also wouldn't be treated well.
I suppose it depends though.
Yeah.
I don't know, because because they'd be like, what are you doing here? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I've been to Ethiopia before, and every single village that we went to, it was for a travel study for my university. They loved us, like the white people. Like they were like, buy my thing, and it's just like, okay, here, whatever. Like they
I was
loved.
gonna say you have money.
Yeah, they loved us, and I know, but like they just. It was just, we were beloved in every, even if it was just like, hanging out with the little kids, and they were like, I wasn't that interesting because I have brown hair, but like the blondes were like, the blue eyes, like those, my friend, she was a little whatever. So they were like, your hair, So, I mean, I do feel like there is something about, I feel like, I don't know, it just seems like more or less white people get to have a good reception in a place where they might be a minority. Maybe not. I shouldn't say that. I just said from my experience, because I have a personal experience and you can't take that away. No.
Yeah. I think as soon as you said that, I saw a pink streak show up in your hair.
No, but like that's okay. This is what I'm trying to do lately, and I think you've seen me maybe be like this. I don't like saying something's wrong just because someone on the far left said it. So when people say, I have my personal experience, so I'm right. Okay, well, you can't say if then for the so I'm right part. You can't assert that. But if you have a personal experience, that doesn't mean you didn't have that. It doesn't mean that.
I think they're setting themselves up. Like if I was willing to use that same weapon in this in an argument against them, like it just ends the conversation. It's like, well, I have this experience. It's like, well, I have this other experience. So
you're right. But yes, but the answer to that is, this is anecdotal, but this is how this is what I experienced. So I do think that kind of can help it to be said without whatever. So this could go.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into the whole like, what is truth?
Yeah, I know. What is truth? Like, it's getting too heavy. I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to chat about this sort of. But that's the dialogue thing. If we felt like it, we could just use your little thing and figure that out. So okay, so this is something that you have in your head as a maybe someday thing that you'd like to put out there at some point.
I've started on it. I'm not sure when it'll come out because I'm very, very busy, especially this month and next month.
Okay.
But I hope to have something prototyped by the summer, which is a long time. But like I got work and I got weddings coming up. So
okay. So maybe at some point we can
demo.
Yeah. I would love to. Beta test.
Yeah, no, and you're totally invited to it, because I think the sooner we get people like playing with it, we can iron out kinks. We can see like, oh, well,
that didn't work, or
because obviously I think notifying people, especially since these dialogues, so unlike a dialogue on a stage, these will not necessarily be synchronous. Eventually I would like, how on Facebook you could see that someone's typing and then it'll come through in real time.
Yeah.
That would be great to have, but baby steps, first stage probably won't have that.
Okay.
So it'll be asynchronous, meaning even though you're reading the dialogue, you'll be at the bottom of the dialogue, and it's not over yet. So later on, you should probably get a notification telling you, oh, Jordan Peterson finally said something in that dialogue, not the one that you're in, but the one that you're reading, right? So like just thinking through features like that is going to be important.
Yeah, no, and there's so much to think about for details for that. Would you have a character limit or no?
I think per message maybe, but it could be like Twitter where it's like you can just thread them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it just, as long as as long as you can go on for a bit, because that's
I just like the idea of thinking in chunks too, because it helps you make and Peterson has this really great, I know I bring up Peterson a lot. It's like I have a or something.
Yeah.
He has this really great piece on how to write. And something I'm not necessarily a bad writer, but I could be way, way better. And he says, like, think of your essay as a series of paragraphs, and then your paragraphs as a series of sentences, and your sentences as a series of words.
Right.
And as you're going in, it's like, at first you just want to like kind of make sure all the paragraphs are perfect, but then you go and you make sure all the sentences are perfect, you know. And I fear that if it's like Facebook and you can just have as many characters as you want, people will just rant too much.
Oh,
but if
I
you
see.
have to think in chunks of like 300 characters,
Yeah.
you might try to just make your point, you know.
More succinct. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unlike what I just did.
No, you didn't. No. Well, that's why we're talking verbally out loud. Which is, yeah, I've had times where I'm like, oh, I wish I could just say this. It's so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. Okay. Well, this is really good, and I'm looking forward to, you know, developments in it. And so make sure to update me on where you're at with it. So,
I will.
yeah. Okay. Well, have a good rest of the day, John. See ya on Twitter, I guess.